Gayathri and Namit Architects, collective project and write inspires on architecture at the crossroads, consumer culture versus conscious practice. Before we begin, I would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to all our brand partners, Studio Works, EVM Box, Chester's India, Tusker Kata, Kalaspurti, Creo, Future Hook, Carbon Craft, Earthblocks India, Mud with Love, Kaipani, Design Mint, and Cura Home. Now, as we move forward, it is time to introduce the brilliant minds who have joined us today to share their invaluable insights and expertise. Architect Gayathri Shetty, an esteemed alumnus of BMS College of Engineering, began her design journey at Mystery Architects under the tutelage of Shahrukh and Renu Mistry. Within a few short years of learning, she decided it was time to venture out and take the reins of her own practice and partnered with architect Namit Varma, starting her own firm in 1993. The core ethos of GNA is centered around helping clients turn their vision into reality whilst pushing the boundaries of design by making strides into sustainable and determined innovative design practices and details. Eliza Higgins co-founded the collective project with partner Cyrus Patel in 2013. Now based full-time in Bangalore, Eliza previously worked as a designer at Canon Design, Deborah Burke Partners, and Dillon Scofidio plus Renfro, contributing to institutional hospitality and cultural projects. She holds a Bachelor's of Architecture from Roger Williams University and a master's degree from Yale University, where she was awarded the David M. Schwartz Architectural Services Award. Eliza has served as a visiting critique at Yale University, Parsons School of Design, the University at Buffalo, and Roger Williams University. Prathima Sithur, born in Chikmagalur, Karnataka, Prathima's upbringing amid nature deeply shared her affinity for organic architecture. She graduated in architecture from MS Ramaya Institute of Technology, MSRIT, Bangalore University in 1999. Early in her career, she interned with architect Chitra Vishwanath, known for sustainable and alternative building technique, and later spent over 2 years working with Jaisim Fountainhead, JFPPL, under architect Jaisim, honoring her design and project execution skills. Heavily influenced by architect Frank Lloyd Wright, she founded Wright Inspires, focused on creating spaces that embrace nature and organic principles. Her designs emphasize the integration of natural materials, light, and ventilation, reflecting a commitment to eco-responsive architecture. Unfortunately, architect Lester Rosario will not be able to make it today. Now it is my pleasure to welcome our speakers to the stage.
There's one mic here. Is it here? Oh gosh, I don't know if I want to be in the center. This is a bit. No, that's fine. Okay. Thank you. Mic check. Hello. Excited to be part of this elegance. I think what has gotten us, three of us here, we're missing the man in the panel. What has gotten us here is the conscious practice. That's how I look at the commonality, and I think by the end of the session we can see more commonalities that has brought us here. Yeah. So it's my pleasure to be moderating this session. So architecture at the crossroads, I think there's a curated version here, which I think is the questions from you youngsters that you want to hear from the practitioners, and I'm being the medium to take you through this. So I would be reading most of it. Sorry about that. So in a time when terms like sustainability and green design are often reduced to catchphrases, This discussion aims to go deeper. We'll talk about responsible practice, what responsible practice looks like on the ground, the realities of building in a consumer driven world, and the role architects play in shaping not just the buildings but the way of living. Through their stories and insights, you can expect to hear. Let's explore this. So, coming to the segment one, architecture and transition. The shifts, challenges, and the opportunities. Gayatri, your practice has been, for so long. Do you see that we witnessed a huge shift in architecture? Users today are far more involved in the design process. Has this changed the way we as architects think and design?
Hi, everyone. It's great to see so many people on a Sunday morning. But coming to the question, I just wanted to say that, of course, things have changed a lot. And clients, of course, know a lot more. They want a lot more. They've seen a lot more. And how does an architect or a design practice get this into their space? So there is, of course, a lot of responsibility. I think we need to look at that from our side. Also, I believe that, architects need to do their own study. We need to see how, each of these elements really need to, feature in design. And I think the architect should and always should be the hero of the project. Quite often it becomes, should I say heroine?
Yeah, for now.
Hero, yeah. So the thing is that, normally it's the client the person who shouts the loudest, they say, gets heard. And I'm not saying that we should shout the loudest, but I think it's important to be that hero of the project, because otherwise the client tends to do things which are short-sighted. We have been taught to really look at things differently, think of everything, think, way beyond, see what would work, see, why it wouldn't work with something else. There are so many aspects to things that we need to look at when it comes to design. So I think it's important that, there was a time when we said we need to educate clients. I think the time is now.
So I hear that we all have to be heroes now. Yeah. So, Eliza, in your design journey, what has been the most significant shift that you have observed in the recent times? Like, I would like you to just compare a project that you did, 10, 15 years back to now.
So our office hasn't been around that long. So I think for us, I mean, one is the shifts that are happening around us, but also the shifts that are happening within ourselves. And I think the opportunities that we have as our studio gets a little bit older. So one of the things that I'm so grateful for the experiences that we've had here and the opportunities that we've had here. You can't compare them to, like, if we had started our practice in the US, there's no comparison in terms of the opportunities. We moved here knowing that we wanted to focus on materials, detailing, design, not knowing what was in store. And we started with a few tiny, tiny projects where people just saw them and said, hey, these guys are doing something different. And next thing you know, we have houses and schools and different projects, like different scales that, we just would have never have imagined. So there are many shifts that are happening. I think the access to imagery is overwhelming. For us, it becomes very frustrating when we get bombarded by images from a client. Mm-hmm. And, it's always a still, it's always a moment, and they're like, we want this, but we have to kind of then come in and say, but you're not thinking about how all this goes together within a space. And this also happens in our studio. We're constantly kind of trying to evolve the way that we all think to say that everything must be seen spatially, everything must be seen cohesively. It's not about just taking one thing and implementing it in a zone. So there are changes, there are positive changes. The quality of design is just, skyrocketing. The opportunities are there. So I think the best thing for everyone is just to embrace it and be as responsible as possible in the way that we achieve it.
So Eliza is saying Bangalore is beautiful. People of people of Bangalore are beautiful, and holistic is the way to think. Yeah. So
I just wanted to add to that, just a last note. Say yes, yes, yes to everything, but go ahead and do your own thing.
she just revealed a big secret. So, Gayatri, in this, I mean, I was actually talking to Somitro, and this is around the same thing. In this constant busyness and a whole lot of change and challenges that we see, do you think, in order to bring sustainability, into spotlight, do we kind of slow things down? Is that an approach? What's been your experience?
I think, all of us being at home during COVID really got us to think a bit. But the minute that was over, we went back to our crazy lives of, speed. I really think we should. We have somebody who has been in practice for 30 years plus. I believe that there is a lot that we can do, if we just stop and think back, look at what we have as heritage buildings. I mean, not that we have to copy it exactly, but there are so many concepts. There is, I mean, everything about sustainability is right here in what we have lived with. Of course, all you Gen Zs are new to this, but I know Shomitra and me can definitely relate to this. But the thing is that this is it. We have been doing too much of what we see across the world without really appreciating what we have ourselves. And I think it's time to slow down and really absorb this, right from different ways of sustainability, different ways of creativity. If you look at it, the Indianness of living is very, very sustainable. So I believe that, we look at it, we probably should have a lot more discussions about it, because nobody's talking about it except in our, mothers and grandparents' homes and kitchens, I guess. But this is a reality that we need to embrace. Having said that, we definitely have to look at sustainability in a very, very focused way. I don't know where policy and government plays a part, but I think it is an important place where, institutions and bodies of architects really bring this forth to them. Because if you see now, a small thing like a rainwater harvesting pit has become, a must, which is so, I mean, it's one of the few things that, we do without even thinking today, which is really a positive influence. So things like that can probably be brought in, is what I believe. And I guess, the public needs to be more aware.
Very well put. So I did hear from Somitro again. He said, I'm here to show, the 40 projects from my 30 years of experience, which felt very, very good. And I think I will really choose to slow down because I relate to the kind of happiness that we can celebrate when we slow down. The beauty is, in the sunsets, if you have sat and watched, sometimes it's so quick, but the slow sunsets are so beautiful. Again, on to you, Gayatri. Sustainability sounds as a, every conference, every meet, it's talked about. But How is it on ground? How do you make it happen?
So, in our practice, we definitely look at the natural elements, and it's a no brainer that we want to make sure that, all of our projects have, the right essentials in terms of light and ventilation. We do promote as few air conditioned spaces as possible. Maybe the air conditioning is there, but we look at least 80% of that thought being this is a naturally ventilated space. And I think that really is a big difference because, especially being in Bangalore, I think this is something that works very well. In some of the larger cities like Delhi and Bombay, it's surprising how many people live within a totally air-conditioned space 24 hours a day. So I think that's something that we all need to be aware of, and all of us need to make sure, pollution, no pollution, this is something that we have to look at and be be clear. Also, in terms of looking at sustainability through materials, through techniques, I think it's important. There are way too many to even bring up, but I think it's important, like, natural shading and things like that, that we need to look at while we are designing. And I think that's really architect's responsibility.
So before we close the space and install the air conditioners, let's open up and see what are the opportunities. That's what I hear her say. Yeah. Eliza, in your practice, what does sustainability look like in action?
So we've always been very clear that we're not a sustainable practice. We are a responsible practice, and that's something that we take very seriously. The term sustainable, like it actually really surprises me that sustainability is still a term that we're discussing. Like, it should just be a given. And so when clients come to us and they ask us about, like, oh, are you going to incorporate sustainable elements or approaches? I mean, like, obviously, right? Like, the fact that you're doing something that doesn't have solar panels, the fact that you're not looking at rainwater harvesting, the fact that you're not thinking about long-term transformations within the place that you're designing, saying, okay, your requirements are for your life right now, but what about 5 years? What about 10 years? How can we plan to minimize the kind of not only headache but waste later on? So for us, we don't talk about sustainability, and we always laugh when people, we get applications and someone will say, oh, we're really interested in your practice, you did a brick house, you're sustainable, we really want to come work for you. Like, we are not sustainable. Like brick is not the best thing to use necessarily, but everything that we do because it is right for the project. We do because we've spent so much time thinking through it, discussing it with our clients, and with all the the combined experience we have with the research we've done, we feel that we're proposing the best possible solution for the future. So we like glass, right? Our clients do ask for air conditioning. These are realities of practice. And we've had situations where we've given a talk about a technique that we've used where we've reused waste. And a question that we've gotten from the audience is, okay, you started off with an idea where you wanted to use this waste to create load-bearing walls, and then you pivoted and you came up with a composite construction. Isn't that a failure of concept? No, that's not a failure of concept. That is an evolution of concept. That is a learning, and that is still something that we view as being very successful because we used waste in a totally different way. And in the end, the realities of practice is that there's always compromises. So sustainability for us is integral to our process, but it's not something that we discuss. We discuss responsibility.
It's a response from a conscious practice, which is the takeaway. Is there a shift in the theory and the practical aspects of sustainability? Like most of them are students, and what their understanding of sustainability by the books or by in their imagination to what they see in practice. I think what you talked about kind of sums up saying, in a practical approach, this is how you take up things. And you address one at a time. And that's what you probably saw in Somitro's work also. That's how one does in practice. Do you agree?
I think practice is all about learning. And so, I mean, it's very clear that what you learn in school is not necessarily what you practice, but I think it's all about priming your brain and kind of preparing the way that you think to be critical about what you're doing and to look for opportunities. And that education comes at the academic level, but it also continues throughout your career. So for us as a studio, we're always learning, always testing. There will be failures, there will be successes, but the foundation, I think, is what we learned in school, which was just to be curious and to be passionate. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, we're
but
still
that's
learning. We're still learning.
You're always learning. And I
We're
think
always learning.
that's actually what keeps us going, is that every day we're learning something new. Otherwise, architecture is not an easy profession. But the fact that the highs are so high, and it's so incredible to experience these spaces. It's amazing to have a client come to you and say, I feel like this place has always been. This represents me in a way that I could not have imagined. Like, that's incredible. The stress points are also very high, but the fact that every day there's something new
Yeah.
is the best.
Yeah. Sure.
I wanted to add saying that, I mean, in my mind, I always thought that, the best way to be sustainable, I mean, of course, apart from the project itself, is to see whether every site can actually have zero waste.
Yes. Waste is a big
So
challenge.
I mean, it's an as of now it seems impossible.
Yeah.
But I think if we slowly get there, and all you people think of it and see how one can look at it, where nothing from your site goes into, say, a landfill. So what can we do? I mean, as a community, what can we do? We can, do something in this regard sometime in the future.
No, just to
That
tie
is
to tie
live
into that. Yeah.
sustainably.
Yeah. No, so we gave we went to Australia for a lecture. It was like a year and a half ago, and what was really interesting when we gave that talk was that we were talking about reusing building waste, and we were talking about the lack of value. Like there is actually not a value on built construction; it's the land that has the value. But what's interesting is in Australia, the fact that like the most like labeled sustainable successful projects were the ones that reused the most of the original building. It wasn't demolishing, it was actually just reusing, evolving, and limiting the amount of breaking as much as possible. So I think that's also, if you have a space that can be enhanced in some way, like the automatic response doesn't have to be to demolish. Though, I mean, with contemporary lifestyles and requirements, it's always something that is the easiest approach.
Gayatri, in what areas other than the buildings can we, see this hints of having sustainable ways in a city context or in an everyday context? If you thought outside of the buildings.
I think, I mean, we can, I mean, when you think of it as architects, I mean, I would look at it from the architect's lens. I feel as architects, the public, I mean, we interact individually with our clients, but if you're looking at public, I feel that, either we are not doing a good job of being out there and being heard, or we are not getting the right I wouldn't say platform, because that's, you're expecting somebody else to put you there. We need to, be part of, say, maybe community groups and things like that, bring in that awareness. I mean, look at the newspaper, there's nothing about architecture. There's nothing, I mean, it's the word sustainability features somewhere. But what it means to get there, what it means for people like us in our, I mean, it's a very responsible role that we play in a city. And I think we have a lot more responsibility. We need to look at it, whether it is the city, whether it's the city parks, whether it's, anything that we're doing. Today I was just looking outside as I came here, looking outside my window at home, and in Belandur, I don't know how many of you all have been that side of town, but there was this building that was, the concreting was going on for the fourth floor, without, it's not allowed, but that's happening rampantly. So, how do we really,
It's not
make sure
allowed
this
at that
happens?
height, or
There are
on a
no
Sunday? What is it?
the thing is that there is no, it cannot be that high, for one thing.
Yeah, regulation.
And the regulation, they're not following any regulation. So where are we, and what is happening to our city? And if you think of it, in comparison to rural to, I asked Chat GPT in terms of what are the percentages of rural to urban. And they said according to 2011, it was 60 something as, 80 something as rural, and 20 something as, 70 something and 20 something as city, urban life. Today, it seems to have jumped, urban living seems to have jumped to by another 10%. So there is definitely something wrong that we are doing in terms of planning and things like that. But I guess as communities, we need to look at this issue.
And most of the Indian rural is very beautifully green, sustainable. They manage their waste very well. Not a single piece of, plastics are going into villages too, but they manage it so well. And the same people come to cities, and we are so lost in the way we live. I think that's a conscious responsibility that we need to own up a bit more beyond our immediate works, to figure out and say how we kind of handle our waste, just with the same aspiration that we want to have green products. Having the green rated products may not be the solution, but we have to be more conscious about what waste we could create and how we manage our waste. So this whole thing about the consumerist behavior, how in your project scenario, how are you managing with that emotion, the shiny labels that comes in, the packaging that happens, this whole aspiration of the client, want to be consuming more and more. I love the House of Stories, where the architecture was celebrated. It was not the materials that many a times you're seeing architectural projects as, they become the space where you're loading all the construction materials in it. That's how it is seen mostly. So how would you have this conversation with a client that be less consumerist? What are your challenges?
I think, that's what happened in the last 25 years, I would believe, that, there was a lot of this happening in the city. But I think post-COVID, I think there is some kind of, at least some kind of thinking. Whether people follow it or not is a different aspect. But definitely, as architects, we need to, look at it and see how we need to kind of be more sustainable. I think there are numerous materials that, can be used, which are a lot more sustainable. There are, we do that. We try and see how we can convince our clients to do certain things which, are definitely a lot more sustainable than what we've previously used and people have seen and enjoyed, So I think it's up to us. Also, a good thing is that, people are take a lot more pride in Indianness. So I think this definitely helps us in, showcasing Indian products, showcasing, things manufactured, showcasing Indian material, and looking at these materials a little differently in a contemporary setting. How do these, materials work? So I think it's important for us to slow down and look at these aspects and talk to our clients today. Since the environment is great, and I think all you youngsters really have that in you, the spunk in you, to be able to look at it a lot more clearly than, I guess, what we did in the last 25 years.
So it's again architects being on the lead role. That's what I hear. Eliza, in your experience of a simple resolve for a project, how has your communication been with the client? Do you see that you made an influence where you were able to, take the client to the other end? Any such from your experience?
So, yeah, for sure. But I would never say it's black and white. And I would never say that like the client approached us wanting something and then, they ended up with something totally different. And, they were like, oh, thank you for convincing me. Like it's a conversation that happens the whole time. Yes. But for us, the material logic is very important, and it's something that is incorporated at the very beginning. So through that process, the initial conversations, establishing a common language with not only our team internally, but also our clients, to understand when someone says rustic, what does that mean? Does it actually mean a log cabin, or does it mean just natural materials? And what materials are natural? A lot of materials are natural. Marble's natural, but people, say marble and they don't think of it as, the same as, a kota or something. So everyone uses different words to explain their desire for a space that they want. And so for us, through that process, through understanding the site, through looking at the resources that are available in that area, the concept evolves, and it is both spatial and material driven, and that becomes essential. So I think the clients that come to us, they might not come knowing that they want this particular type of thing, but very quickly everyone buys into it, and then we just push to see our vision, our combined vision achieved. Yeah. The biggest struggle that we have, just to jump into this idea of consumerism, is actually the final stages of, let's say furniture, lights, decor, appliances, things that in the end can be viewed as something that can be replaced, and that to me is a very irresponsible way of looking at it. It should be something, a piece that, a light fixture could cost 6,000 rupees, or it could cost 20,000 rupees. The 20,000 rupee light you might really love. Yeah. The 6,000 one you might say, okay, I'm just going to toss it in a year. Like, I know everyone's parameters are different, everyone's budget's different, but that is some area where we're surrounded by so many things. Yes. And this idea of saying, okay, I don't love it, but I'll replace it later, like that, to me, I find a bit problematic. I think we should focus on things that are longer term pieces, surround ourselves with pieces that we love, and not necessarily kind of just buy clutter for the sake of clutter.
As much as like architects, being architects, we celebrate our own sketches, our own imagination, our own expression of drawings and the things that we do on site. What is more important is the conversations that you have through the project. So that's going to make your purpose more stronger, your intent more stronger, and it's very important to take people into confidence. So now a bit about the materials. Most visible part of the building, and looking at the color of what the building looks like, I think it's called green or sustainable or whatever, but is that really so? What is that intent of material, and what new or experimental materials do you see shaping in the future of architecture and interiors in India?
A couple of years back, we had gone for the Biennale in Venice, and there was a wonderful presentation of materials which were partly organic, I'd like to say. So, whether it was building construction material like bricks, using waste material, but had a certain amount of organic material which made it more sustainable. Now, of course, at that time it seemed really far-fetched, but I feel today, I hope people are doing more research to get to that stage where we feel more comfortable in terms of what we're using, and materials. Of course, at every stage of construction, you are looking responsibly at materials. So one would say that we hope that people are doing sufficient amount of research to do, make sure that there are products that are a lot more feasible and sustainable in the long run. Yeah.
So what makes a product sustainable according to you? When you choose, how are you sure that it's okay, sustainable?
I mean, of course, there is a lot of, you have to prioritize, of course, because there are certain things that are, must wants, and some of them which could be a maybe. And I think making those lists and deciding what you want to do and what materials you really want to use in mainstream, in different kinds of projects, I think it's important to make sure that each project is different. So I would say that there are projects like maybe hospitality projects which are I would say simpler to do when it's resorts and things like that, where you can go whole hog in terms of pushing what you want to do. But when you're looking at, say, academic building, and things like that, those are really more difficult. And I guess corporate campuses and all that also have a different character altogether. But I feel that they're all building finally, so, and they're building for human beings. So we really need to make that change and see how we can use more. Though we have used a lot of marble and stuff in the past, I feel that we really need to use more easier material. We don't need to kind of deplete the planet of so much of material, is what I believe, whether it is granite or marble, Indian, Italian, whatever. So what are those materials that we can use that would make a difference? I think it's time to look at it where we look at things more from a planet perspective and not just a local perspective.
This is sounding a little heavy. We will literally have to exclude most materials. So
Can I just jump in on, because I think a huge factor in this whole conversation is actually budget. You can't have, I don't think this can be generalized in any way. Everything is expensive now, and a lot of times I would say that the interest in doing what would be labeled a sustainable project can also come from someone thinking that that is actually an affordable project. And it is 100% not necessarily true. So institutional project is going to have a very different budget than a residential project. Yes. What flexibility and opportunities you have to find responsible methods of building, even quality of paint. Like, we could look at the highest quality paint that meets all the international standards, that has no VOCs, and that's fantastic, but that's expensive.
Yes, that's expensive.
So and on the flip side, to look at items that are readily available, that might be of medium cost. There's also an aging and weathering that a lot of clients are not willing to accept.
Yeah.
So then that cost of redoing, the lifespan, all of those are factors. So this 100% can't be generalized in terms of what do you do as a sustainable project.
Yeah. So it's the budgets bringing us to reality. Yeah. So from your experience, Eliza, how do you balance the excitement of experimenting with new material with the responsibility of ensuring long-term performance of the material?
So we do a lot of mock-ups, studies. We have like in situations where we're experimenting with waste or mud construction, we'll have it tested and certified. So it's not, and then there's a lot of you know, logic as well, I guess. We've seen how projects weather. We are very observant of spaces around us. When we visit, any building, we're kind of looking at how it's held up. We're constantly, if we're looking at and this has to do also with like redo. If we're looking at, let's say, like a wood polish, does it make sense to do something that can be easily hand applied? Will the client maintain that? Is it something that they're committed to? Yeah. If they're committed to it, then just a simple oil is great. But if they let it decay too far, then you're talking about a major, renovation. So all of these, like in our practice, I would say educating ourselves is a huge part of it, but also thinking about what is appropriate for that particular situation. And then accepting that so many things are absolutely out of your control.
Yeah. In spite of things being out of control, we try to be the conscious practice. This is for Gayathri. Many times I feel the local material of Bangalore can only be waste that the earlier generation has created. And if you are given a project to design completely with waste, what would be your excitement level on a scale of 10?
10.
Wow. Big
You know,
round of applause for this.
Oh, no. I think, we did, years back, we did a project with Dr. Sudarshan in BR Hills. And this was for, again, multiple, it was actually some kind of a tribal housing project. And we, of course, were very romantic about, doing mud construction and having, roofs which had only, fronds and, tiles which were the smaller tiles, potter's tiles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those were the things that we were thinking. And of course, they were looking at the city and saying, no, we want a concrete roof. We want plastered surfaces and things like that. But I think the important thing, what we did achieve there was that since it was a little away at that time, very difficult to bring material into that area, we worked with a lot of stone which was locally available. When I say locally available, it was on the site. They were like all, in the site, rock in the site, which would get chipped and removed. And that we really created along with, a little bit of concrete, of course, but a little bit of mud, and made those blocks. So it had its own character because, you're really trying to see what you can do. And it was a great learning and a great experiment for us as well. And I feel that, in this time of speed, we really should, try and see how we can do something that's experimental, something that, works. Works if we think about it and really try and, I don't know whether you've noticed, Shomitra, every summer I make sure that in front of our office we put out this, what do you call it? Like, with coconut leaves, like
Little shelter for
a shelter, which is very typical of what we've seen in the villages and things like that. So it works for the summer months. And as soon as the rains come, then you don't need it at all. But for that heat, to make sure that all the, scooters and the cars are under at least a little bit of cover, this definitely helps. So I'm saying that, we have these elements that are part and parcel of our culture. We should really see how we can use them.
So Gayatri is saying romanticize with the waste. For a while, then we will go back when we get the eligibility to use the new materials. It's a question for you, Eliza. If you believe in using waste as a material in your buildings. I would just ask your permission if you would love to do that. Yes or no?
We've done it.
You have done it. Wow.
Yeah, so-
that sounds good. And if that is what it is, can you just, from your imagination, talk about this future project, about the project? I mean, it's a future project in your mind as an imagination. What do you want to say about it to our audience?
I don't know. There could be many future projects. So.
Now, this one project that you decide to build with waste, and what you can communicate as an architect through that project.
Can I speak to the projects that we have done with waste?
Yes,
Is that
please.
okay?
Yeah, yeah.
So 4 years ago, Cyrus, around 5 years ago, the Cooktown. Yeah. So we actually we did a project where there was an existing building on the property, and it was made primarily of brick and lime. And originally, we had discussed with the client the opportunity to renovate it and add on to it. But with the existing structures, you know, they're one is they're load bearing, and two is the spaces are quite small. So we had to demolish the home. So we actually reused all the waste material from that building and cast new blocks to build a new home. And so for us, you only actually see that history when you cut a section in the block. It's quite beautiful when you see that history inside, but from the outside, you just go by and you would say, oh, this is a nice house. It has the blocks look like a mud block. But that story was something that was very interesting for us, and we ended up reusing, because the existing home had very little concrete and actually very little metal. We were able to reuse almost everything from that home. Obviously, the metal that was there was recycled. And then now we're doing a house in Nandi Hills where we're reusing all the waste material from granite tile cutting, off the offcuts of that process. And so there, we've built the entire structure out of this material. We are also experimenting with wood waste and casting it. We've been experimenting with many different things. Not every project, this strategy is not suited for every project, but it's something that we want to continue to explore. So if anyone has a project where they want to experiment with waste, we are available.
You see her pitching for the project now. That's very nice to hear. You're already in that space of utilizing the waste. Gayatri, do you think the future of responsible design lies more in innovation, or going back to the age-old traditional wisdom?
I think both. You know, I mean, it's like when you talk about contemporary Indian design. You know, I mean, you have to combine the two. So similarly, I think one needs to look at, study a lot about Indian techniques, Indian architecture, heritage, all of it. I mean, there are so many different aspects to it. And of course, look at new age material, new age technologies. And I think in India, our construction technologies are, are a little way behind. We do so much of what was probably done during, the British regime. So I think there are certain things that we can look at. Maybe these need to start in academics itself. And of course, as practicing architects, if everyone does their bit in experimenting and trying to see how you can, make a better world, I think it's the right way to go. I believe that you need both.
It's a fusion of both, and that's what they have been doing as part of GNA. Yeah. So, Eliza, what role do you think the government has to play, or the policy making can contribute into making our lives more green? Not only buildings, but if you had a choice to buy a green rated phone in some which way, we all know phones are not that good. Yeah, but if there was a way, what policy making can improve?
So 100% policy is a huge part of this. I mean, to think to say that the architect is responsible for changing the urban environment, I mean, like that I think is a bit naive unless everyone actually wants to get their act together and come together and do something that is productive. But I think from a policy perspective, it's absolutely critical. But I also think an awareness to say that we want to have, if my car is working today and I decide to dispose of it and get a electric car, is that the right decision, even though the electric car has all the ratings and there's incentives, like government incentives and all of that. So I think education and kind of it's not just education. It's a personal way of living, and to think about how you want to live your life. And if more people can come together and just say, okay, we want to be responsible in the way that we live, I think that will have larger impacts as well. But policy definitely needs to be there.
Yeah. Eliza is, when you see her, she is going back to being responsible and conscious with every mindset that she's putting out.
I'm also very irresponsible when it comes to my like Swiggy orders, and I feel about it. I feel bad about it every day. So I think it's easier to say these things than to actually practice them. Like when we go to Cyrus's mom's house, and I see this tiny little garbage. Like she has like a tiny little plastic bag that she keeps all of her. The waste is like zero, and then our house after a weekend, and like it's like a. It's crazy. So and there's just two of us. So I definitely think that for all of us at the kind of the most personal level, we could make small steps that might not have a huge impact, but we could be better.
A simple policy of weighing the waste out of each home, I think the government can move a lot more forward. Gayathri, being in the profession, I mean, as architects, if we led a role of a panel of advisors in the policy making and the government, what three priority list that comes to your mind, which looks feasible, which looks simple, that can be implemented, and as a community of architects, we can advise the government?
Just a couple of days ago, we were having a similar conversation. And, I want to say that architects, especially in Bangalore, I know for Bangalore, are all very eager to help. And there have been times when, the government, the BBMP says, okay, we want your help, architects, and all of us show up in that room, and finally they have nothing to offer, except something that's so minimal that you don't really need an architect to do. They say, okay, what color should this be painted, or what should you do on this? What should you grow here? So I think it's important that as a group, we need to, make ourselves felt, both with the government and, we have people like Naresh who is an activist and is there and has the, contacts with government. But I think we need to do that. I also want to say that, what we lack as Indians is volunteering. I think we need, the time has come when all of us have to come into a space where we all volunteer to our community. I'm not talking about an architect's community, I'm talking about the community where we live, to make that area a better place. And, there are humongous problems in and around that area. And if we can, even look at doing some things right, or help people do some things right, I think that would be a great thing from our perspective. But having a group of advisors constantly with the policymakers would definitely help. And that could be, a changing, a group of people, group of architects and urban planners and all of it together.
Even students.
And
an active
students,
participation from students can help
the
the city.
future. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot of waste has been talked about. So let's just change the angle of sustainability to something more interesting. If sustainability was to be looked at as a positive mindset, like an abundance mindset, what would you embrace? Nature has everything that each one of us needs, right? It's only not for the greed. So, what would you embrace, Gayatri?
So I have two stories for this, tiny ones. One is that IID came up with, some years ago, came up with something known as a co-studio. So what we intended was to make sure that everyone's waste material came to a particular space so that we could use this in different projects, or open it out to people who were building, especially at the, at the lower level where people were looking for different kinds of material and things like that. So I think that really is something that we can really see how we can make better and a little more streamlined, again by organization, maybe IIA, triple ID, IUDI, whatever, landscape architects, so that there is a common platform where people can reach out if they have waste, or people can reach out if they want waste. There are so many of us who are doing honorary projects for, say, a government school or something, which where budget is the biggest concern. So, a lot of times some of these materials which are not required in a particular site can be definitely reused or upcycled in these projects. And it's right across. I think we can do a lot with that.
Waste from one architect's project can become the material for the others. Eliza, from sustainability, from an abundance perspective, what is that you're seeing? Yeah, abundance perspective.
So I don't think this answers your question, but I do feel that when this morning I was just walking our dogs down the road in Indranagar, and I was looking around me, and I was looking at all the buildings that had come up, the small houses that are now these, whether it's a private home or an apartment building, and the trees on the road we've seen slowly come down. And I was just looking at how wide the footpaths were and seeing how solid they were, and that everything, even up to the trunk of the tree, was completely cemented. And from a sustainability perspective, when you think about the water management issues, the fact that you're dealing with a massive amount of heat that's being radiated off of that, and also what that does to an urban environment. In terms of abundance, I would hope that there would be a lot more landscape in these areas where we could actually celebrate that as a place that was green, as a place that made you feel good, instead of just paving it because we feel it can't be maintained.
A small policy decision of having some trees in front of your house can get us more greenery, and we can get the green Bangalore back. Simple things.
But it's also one is its privacy, and also it's heat reduction. I mean
reduction,
that like these facades are just huge and bare, and like you're just baking them. So anyway, it was a small thought from this morning.
So there was a thought, a small idea that somebody had come up with and said that, you architects should think about this. It came from a person who works with landscapes. And she said, everywhere you see that there are so much of waste collected through, say, leaves, just leaves, leaves that have fallen, and it collects, it mounts up, apartment complexes, everywhere you're throwing them out instead of, can you think of doing something where you can use the leaves as shading, and then when it actually, starts rotting or whatever, then use it for, as fertilizer. So it seemed like a simple idea which could translate, into something that would really help every community. And today I think Bangalore has a lot of community parks And we always think that, maybe with more volunteerism, maybe, things like this can come up and not, load things outside of our areas with waste then.
So the rural areas do have, they handle their dry leaves very well, and they take it back to their soil to make it, part of the soil. That's how they nurture the soil. So here we're not completing the cycle and we're treating it as a waste. I saw in Somitro's work that, a beautiful skylight, which is a large surface of glass, and it probably was the inaugural day and there were flowers there. One idea is most of our skylights, which are getting a lot of heat inside the house in summer, we can have these dry leaves there and then use it back.
Which I do. I put
Yeah.
I put coconut fronds on my skylight as well during summer.
Yeah. So some simple practical solutions to make the buildings more dynamic also. I'm sure the light patterns that you start seeing will be beautiful too. So yeah, with a couple more questions, you have like you want me to ask? Rapid fire? Yeah. Thank you. My pleasure. Some for the youth here. One sustainable practice you swear by in every project, Gayatri.
Make sure there's maximum light and ventilation.
Eliza, if collective project had to be described in one word, what would it be?
Considered.
Sorry?
Considered.
Considered. Okay. If you weren't an architect, what would you be?
Full-time mother and grandmother, which means that you're an activist, you're, everything together.
All in one. Is architecture for you more about storytelling or problem solving?
It's both. You can't separate the two.
Chocolate cake or thrill of a new design idea? What wins?
New design idea.
If you could redesign any public space in India, which one would you pick?
Okay, I read this in advance and I was really trying to think of it, but we would take any public space, any opportunity to design a public space. So
She's choosing any because any can become many.
honestly,
If she chooses one, it's one.
We would love to work more in the public realm.
That's very nice. One rule in design that you would never break. One rule in design that you would never break.
We make sure that, GNA has some concepts which we, work with very strongly, which are spatial. So we, whatever happens, don't let go of it.
Okay. So, one material you cannot imagine without working with.
Okay, so this would definitely be landscape as a material.
Very beautiful. Yeah, very beautiful. Eliza is just, I'm amazed by Eliza. She's just coming back and coming back and coming back. And she's like, I'm a conscious designer.
Well,
I see that.
we do what we can.
Yeah, I'll go for the last question. Sustainability in one word for you, Gayatri.
Sustainability makes you, or should make you, look at your own heritage and look into the future as well. So back and forth.
Again, she is, constantly coming back to that point that she connects with, being rooted in her designs and to think futuristic. Amazing, amazing consistency. With the varied questions, I think you're there. Yeah, yeah. So, debates or drawings, what sparks better ideas for you? Debates or drawings, what sparks better ideas for you?
I think it's conversation.
Yeah. Nicely put as conversation than debates. Thanks, that's our time. Thank you for being here.
Ma'am, I'll be asking you a few questions. So, if sustainability had a new name, to make people take it seriously, what would you call it?
I would call it as luxury of nature because I believe you need that fresh air to breathe. You need that good water. You know, everybody deserves that, and you need that lovely peace where you hear the birds sing. You do hear all the noises made by little creatures like a little squirrel as you live. It's very important.
Yeah, that's so true, ma'am. What's harder, convincing clients about sustainability or convincing contractors on site?
Neither. I don't have trouble.
If you could green certify anything in daily life, from biryanis to Bollywood, what would you start with?
Air around us.
Air around us.
If we did that one thing, I think everything will fall in place.
Everything follows suit. A design habit or principle you've never compromised on in 30 years.
Uh, Designing close to nature. I think I'm very excited about bringing those elements of nature into the buildings that we design.
It's so important to make designs nature centric. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you all.
To mark this moment, I would like to thank Mrs. Nehal Butt from Studio Works to felicitate our panelist. I kindly welcome you to the stage, ma'am.